Hello everyone, what's up? Leviathan News here on a Wednesday. It's October 30th. I think that's how they say it in English. And I'm honored to be here with some of my favorite guests. I know I say that a lot, but I really mean it on this one. I'm joined by the CVX5, three members to be correct, of the CVX5 guys, but I will let them introduce themselves for a bit, because they actually have a lot more titles than just that, whatever they will be willing to share. First of all, Jason, what's up, sir? How are you?
Good, great to be here. Nice to see you again.
You too, man.
Should I introduce myself?
Let's just say hello to Cryptovestor and
hello.
Buzz as well.
Sir.
And guys, what's up?
To be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming, sir. And of course, the amazing Buzz. How are you, kind sir? I don't hear you that well, Buzz, maybe?
Oh, can you hear me now?
No, it sounds kind of low.
Oh, okay. Let me, continue with the others, and I'll fix my.
Better. Now it's better.
It's better now.
Okay.
Yeah, now it's good.
Okay.
What's up? So while we wait for a few people to join, let's use that time for sure to introduce some of these fine gentlemen. Jason, go ahead, start, man.
All right, nice to see everyone. I lead the business development team at Third Web, a developer platform with 140,000 monthly active devs. Work with Boz at a DeFi advisory firm called 4 Moons, where we sub-advise for a hedge fund, we allocate capital, and do a bunch of angel investing.
How do you say that name? 4 Moons?
4 Moons. We can share the Twitter, but we basically work with projects to help them think through what's their what are their strategy. There's whether it's go to market, tokenomics, liquidity, really anything around a startup. Boz, myself, Adam, or Ace, who leads BD over at Aerodrome and Velodrome, our partner Ash. The 4 of us kind of bring together a skill set around general, kind of all aspects of startups. Boz used to be the COO of Akash. I've been doing early stage startups for 15 years, exited one to Twitch. So we just kind of help companies. And then we also allocate capital for a hedge fund when they have clients that are allocating to crypto. That money kind of goes to the 4 Moons group, and then we allocate it. Some of that's traded. It's a liquid token fund. Some of it's stablecoin farming. It's a variety of DeFi. It's all DeFi though.
Cool. Yeah, I know you guys are steering in a lot of pots, baby. I'd say it like that. Busy people, and also I'm not sure how to say that word in English, but like very capable of thinking of new ideas and new offers they can go to with different teams, like spotting talent and spotting opportunity, maybe is the better way to put it. So I definitely look forward to this one. Who's next? Boz, maybe?
Boz,
you there?
Yes. Yes, here we go. Okay, sorry, just having some microphone issues. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, we're here. Great.
Yeah, so quick intros. Yeah, I think Jason caught it all, mostly. I think I'm going to have him intro me moving forward. That was great. No said it better. But yeah, I guess just focusing more on the advisory side. Yeah, there's a lot of projects, not a lot. There are a few really strong projects that we're super excited about. I'm excited they're coming online with considerable announcements soon. The most recent one will be Asymmetry Finance, so we'll talk about it along with their stablecoin shortly. But yeah, I'm super excited about where the market is, how it's performing so far, finally, after 3 years of all of us wandering in the desert alone. And I'm excited to learn more about FXN and what they're doing in their go-to market. I know Curve is working on a considerable amount of things. So yeah, super excited to be here and good things happening. I think the last time the three of us were chatting with Leviathan, I think we almost hit a record of viewers.
Yeah.
At
Yeah,
we
it
were
was
hitting the new all-time
actually
high.
700 people or something.
it was actually an incredible stream. It was one of our first Llama parties.
That's right.
Yeah. And it
I
was
mean,
one of
it
the
was one
first
of the
times you
first
used
Llama
Restream.
parties. It wasn't the first time we used Restream. It was one of the first, like it was the second or first time that we used the X for streaming as well.
Right.
It was like at least half a year ago. I remember because I was with my family on vacation, like in Eilat, in like the south of Israel. And I went back from like the pool or whatever, like where I was like, guys, before dinner, I have to go to this stream. You don't understand. I told my parents and, my sister and my brother-in-law and my nephew. I was like, no, I have to do this stream. You don't get it. Like we have great guests, blah, blah, blah. And really it was one of our, it was a huge stream. And hopefully once we start sharing this link, we'll have a lot of people to watch this one as well. Cryptovestor, you want to share a few words as well before we pick it up?
Sure. Yeah, I got started in Bitcoin around 2014. I was a Bitcoin maxi. Didn't want to know anything about Ethereum or any altcoins. And then in 2020, I had a couple of friends that, were laughing at me because I wasn't earning any yield. And I was a little shocked and I was like, yield? What are you talking about, yield? And they helped me install a MetaMask wallet, and I converted a lot of my Bitcoin to Ethereum in 2020, and found myself dabbling into everything that was, that time period, the Ohm forks and things like that. And then I found my way to Curve and Convex. From that, I just got Curve pilled. And I saw stablecoins as kind of the next big thing after Bitcoin and Ethereum. And that's where I'm at. That's how I got started. I also, through Convex, got involved with the Aladdin ecosystem, which became an Aladdin core contributor. And, now heavily involved with FX, and looking forward to what they're going to bring to market here in the next few weeks.
Definitely, and I hope that as we go into the interview, we'll get into that, and you'll share some stuff as well. I guess,
Sure.
To be honest, this interview, the way it was scheduled, was when I saw a tweet by Boz, a post by Boz a few days ago, and it reminded me of some other posts that I've noticed by you, Boz, recently. About the thing that I think maybe is the thing that makes all of us like most curious in the space, and I'm talking about stablecoins, of course. I actually started doing my own editions of Another Day in Crypto recently on X, and as I was doing one of the recent ones, like I didn't even plan it like ahead in advance, but I was like, okay, all this stuff is about stablecoins. Like whatever I'm curating today is about stablecoins. So I might as well like make it into like a stablecoins edition and add some other stablecoins that I'm curious about as well. And it really made me realize, oh my God, there are so many most of what I'm interested in the industry has become stablecoins. And for someone like me who's not coming from like TradFi or whatever, like to be honest, I have very limited financial knowledge in any kind of like measurement. But it really fascinated me in a way about like how did this become the thing that makes me the most curious of all?
Yeah, so stablecoins will provide will be the most impactful thing in crypto globally, just given the use case and the pain points that it solves. When you think about remittances, it's extremely expensive. My wife's family is from Nicaragua, so remittances to Nicaragua are extremely rent-seeking, very expensive.
What is remittances exactly, Boz? What
So you go. Let's just say this. So here's a personal story. So, everybody knows, and I've said this a million times, I'm from a city in Latakia. I was born there in Syria. So we have a lot of
Middle
family
East.
there. Yeah, Middle East brothers right here, right? And you know, the obviously the country is in turmoil. There's insane inflation, and you know the story of just emerging markets in general, whether it's Latin America, Southeast Asia, a bunch of African nations, and a lot of the Middle East. There is a considerable amount of inflation. So everybody in the world has the phone, right? And for the first time in history, you know, anybody could create a wallet, and for the first time in history, there is something about inclusive finance that allows people to access the power of the dollar, not the dollar specifically, but some derivative or some reflection of a dollar. Could be USDT, could be USDC, could be some other yielding stable coins. And what's really interesting about that is there's half the world's population that are currently unbanked. And now they have an option to either, you know, provide for their families or provide for their economies with a fiat that is losing considerable amount of money, corrupt regimes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, or be paid in something like this. When I'm talking about remittances, you know, if I want to send $1,000 US dollars to, let's just say, my uncle or my cousin whose birthday, you know, he's turning like 6 or 5 or whatever. Let's just say we send him some money. Well, I have to go now to Western Union. I have to sign a bunch of paperwork. Takes a bunch of time off my day. There are fees from Western Union. And by the time the money actually hits my family members in the cash in their hand, it's lost about 50 to 60% of the value. Where did the value go? Western Union gets a cut. The providers get a cut. The people operating the convenience store get a cut. You know, there's an insane amount of like a lack of transparency where the money is going. So when you amplify remittances on a global scale, like this is a massive market to tap into. And that's just one problem with one use case. When you talk about people accessing the dollar in emerging markets to pay for goods and services, it's a tremendous value add for them because it improves their lives socially, socioeconomically, et cetera. But for people like, you know, in first world countries where our pain point, like, you know, Jason and I and Cryptovestor, we don't have that problem of like, oh, you know, because we live here, we're very privileged to live in the US. However, what does that look like on a global scale when we're traveling? Well, why would a merchant in Europe care is like the way I like to frame it. Why do they care about USDC? Well, they have a merchant processing little, you know, thing at their coffee shop. Let's just say I want to buy an espresso in Italy. Well, I could use my Visa, I could use my MasterCard, whatever it is. They have to pay 3% transaction fee plus the 30 cents, right? That's how merchants make money. Well, if you accept USDC, the cost goes down considerably. And these small businesses essentially live on margin. So every single transaction, if you eliminate 3% and 30% per transaction on a $2 or €2 or €3 coffee, what does that do for a business? It drastically changes things. Not only that, for every single transaction, you can imagine a world where you have your Apple Pay or your Google Pay or your Samsung Pay, you tap, USDC routes from your account or your wallet, transacts instantaneously, settles instantaneously, and the cost of the transaction goes to sub 1 cent. So that is kind of like the impact and from different vantage points, depending on who you're talking to, about how it impacts first world users, you know, developed economies, how it impacts developing economies, and how it helps, you know, 3.5 billion people that are currently unbanked to leverage the power of the dollar in different ways to transact, pay, given the stability and the trust and the global trust behind the dollar.
Okay. First of all, I think that just like I once told you, I don't know if you remember when we talked on like a private call, I think you're one of the best at articulating stuff. Like I really, you are for sure one of the best people who can actually explain a concept, and I'm sure it also makes you one of the best salesmen out there. much respect. First of all, if I want to like try to extract like titles from what you said, and of course correct me if needed, the 2 points you're touching on the most is access to the dollar worldwide, like global access to the dollar, and also like cutting costs, like making the whole use of money much cheaper, and again more accessible in a way. So main word I'm taking from it is accessibility. Am I correct on that?
I'll chime in. I think there's to build on what Boz was saying, a couple ways to think about this. You know, the EVM, the Ethereum, and all EVMs out there, they're fundamentally built to be like financial computers at their most basic level. And we are figuring out other kinds of complex applications to build on top of it. You know, Mark Andreessen has this interesting statement that he makes about Netscape. Like when he built Mosaic, one of his biggest regrets was not putting payments into the browser. And because if when you opened up Netscape and you connected your bank account or credit card, the internet would have looked differently. It would have evolved differently if payments were a part of the browser. Every website, you wouldn't need to add all your info. You wouldn't necessarily need to create accounts everywhere. You could click buy buttons and you'd instantly buy it. There might not be ads on the internet the same way. You might not have email spam. And this is all if we had a payments protocol. Now, because of Ethereum, we have a payments protocol. We have stablecoins. That's what they are. And what people are able to do is use it, and they're able to build this protocol into their applications so that money can be used in apps, this protocol of money, of hard money. And so like that's one thing that's accelerating adoption. Another is the demand for the dollar, like Boz said. Like remittances are people leaving their country to go work in the United States and they send the money back. And it's expensive because when you send the money back, it gets taxed. And then there's fees. But if you use the payment protocol, stablecoins, you skip all those fees. You have instant settlement. You remove the intermediaries. And so there's kind of like an arbitrage on the existing financial infrastructure, including laws and different middlemen. And so like the idea that like this is one of the first applications because it's the simplest. It's what these computers, it's one of the use cases it was built for. And it's like there's tremendous demand because it's money. And like, you know, Chris Dixon from A16Z has an interesting statement about how like payments are a communication protocol at a really abstract level. Like when you want something, like I want that apple, you know, you give someone money, they give you the apple. You've sort of communicated with them, like I want that, they give it to you. And so like it's so broadly useful. So like payments are like they're like one of the pillars of what the internet is. And so that's why when crypto is getting built out as a software platform, it's one of the first and most broadly used applications.
That's these are great points.
I want to add something
later. Next one, take it, Vestal.
Well, you know, just like we're talking about the remittance and you know, exporting the dollar, and obviously that's all very, very big. And but we haven't really talked about like what it could mean for stablecoins if they really take on a different role. Like what if your Starbucks dollars were really a stablecoin, or what if Amazon created a stablecoin? I predict that would probably happen. You know, eBay creates a stablecoin. And you have all of these banks and corporate entities creating their own version of a stablecoin, and then they become sort of like what we think of as points. And I don't mean like DeFi points. I mean kind of like corporate points, American Express rewards, things like that. Like suddenly the stablecoin becomes much different, and I can see a world where you know DEXes like Curve or Balancer or Uniswap are used to swap between these different corporate US dollars in essence. So like, let's say you had like 1,000 Amazon dollars, but you really wanted, to buy something on eBay, or you could swap that, or you wanted Starbucks dollars. You could just swap them and then have them on your phone and, use them for whatever you want to use them for. Another thing that we don't really talk a lot about is like how stable coins are different than dollars, digital dollars in a bank, because digital dollars in a bank are basically a database. So Bank of America or Wells Fargo has a database with your name in it and, how many dollars you have in your bank account. It's not public. It's not decentralized. There's a lot of trust mechanisms between banks so that, that can work. So now you kind of open up the floodgates if you have something that's completely open that can be swapped, worldwide, recognized worldwide, without having to worry about intricate trust mechanisms between banking databases, if you think of it that way. Here's an example too, like, we see a lot of global disasters around the world, especially in your area, in the Middle East. There's obviously a lot of things recently here in the US. There was a major hurricane that went through and hurt North Carolina pretty bad. And this is something that people don't talk about a lot. Like, what if FEMA could airdrop, 10,000 or 1,000 USDC to every affected user in North Carolina? That could happen with USDC, but right now, if those users if those people need money or assistance, they have to apply for it. They have to wait for a check to get in the mail. They have to cash that check, or maybe it gets ACH'd if that's how it's done. But my point is, like, there's ways that even the government can use dollar-based stablecoins in affected emergency areas, things like that. There's a whole world of the way that this can be used that we aren't really thinking about right now. And right now we're just kind of like swapping on curve, and we're just kind of fooling around and having a good time. But in the future, especially now as you're starting to see, regulation. I mean, think about this. Right now, there's bills in Congress about stablecoins. There isn't even a bill in Congress right now about Bitcoin or Ethereum, but we have bills about stablecoins. Like, this is going to be much, much bigger than we can all imagine. And this is going to be part of the global financial network. So that's kind of just something to throw out there and for you guys to think about. But there's a lot of things that can be impacted by this.
There's people living in other countries that have a hard time getting dollars, or it's expensive to get dollars. And if you are able to swap, into stables, and, you're able to kind of hold our currency. So like, this is good for the dollar. Right. It's funny, Cryptovestor, you mentioned, points programs. Yeah. There's websites where you can buy someone else's points. Like, there's already sort of like secondary marketplaces to purchase rewards points and loyalty points at like a mega discount. And, maybe if you're actually a fan of Delta Airlines, you'd actually swap just to buy those points to get whatever perks that they offer you.
Right.
So, we talk to a lot of companies at Third Web about, that are making plans to come out with these like they're converting their loyalty program. They're in the process of running tests and exploring turning their points into stable coins and trying to turn them into crypto assets.
Exactly. And I think that's going to be a really normal thing. Like, you're going to see, all kinds of corporations getting involved. We've already kind of seeing it now. I mean, it's all over the news. We've got, I don't know how many corporations now involved in stablecoins. And I think we're going to see banks and governments and, maybe even sovereign countries, having their own stablecoins. So it's on the way. I mean, and I definitely see stablecoins as the third biggest thing next to Bitcoin and Ethereum. And I would say that at one point, it's going to exceed the market caps of all of those. Bitcoin and Ethereum is going to be small compared to the trillions of dollars in stablecoins that can be out there.
I would agree with that.
It's interesting, guys. I feel like it's if this is truly embraced by sovereign nations, especially the US. And hi guys, nice to be here. Good to see you guys.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll join. I will just introduce you guys for
Yeah.
a second. We are honored to have two other great guests on. Justin from Asymmetry had him on last week with the lovely Hannah. It was quite a pleasure. Hope we will also get to some Asymmetry and USDAF alpha with all these participants later on in the episode. And the lovely Ace, the book, is here as well. How are you, sir? With you here, we will probably also try to take that conversation a bit to the airdrop, velodrop side, at least on some touches. I'm sure you'll know how to do it yourself. But Justin, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to introduce you guys to all the viewers. Thanks, man.
No, much appreciated. But I think it's interesting, like for US dollar dominance, right? Most of global debt is denominated in dollars. If we talk about the US actually finally maybe one day embracing the stablecoin narrative, I feel like it's an incredible way to actually continue this US dollar dominance. It's really a simple proposition. Like most people want to denominate their savings in dollars and transact in dollars. All you have to do is allow them to do it on chain. And I think like the dominance will continue, and there's nothing you really have to do to like force it. It's people will choose it. Just let them. And so I feel like that's kind of like what I'm waiting to see from a regulation standpoint. It's just like get out of the way a little bit and let the builders build and build regulation that allows people to do that, because I think it really benefits the US most of all, period.
Yeah,
really.
it's a significant, huge advantage for the U.S. To be able to export dollars as stable coins. That's something that
it's also such a strategic thing, you know. Like this is not like
another. It's almost like another Bretton Woods moment if you think about it.
Wow.
You know, I mean, you had the Bretton Woods agreement, you know, and that's when the oil was denominated in dollars. And now we have this new technology that is just basically exploding and allowing for millions and millions of users around the world to hold dollars digitally. So it's pretty significant.
Just to give everybody, we have about 180 billion in stable coins. That's the market cap today, projected to be, I believe, 3 trillion at minimum. Within 5 years.
And just so you know, I think I was reading somewhere this week that stablecoins basically 100x'd since 2020. So everybody's out there looking for their next 100x, but stablecoins did it quietly without anybody kind of realizing.
Well, here's a good segue, putting Ace up. The base has seen a 1,200% increase in just stablecoin TVL. This year.
Yeah, it's insane.
Less than, and it's continuing to accelerate. They have just shy of like flipping Solana in just stable coins.
Right.
But Ace, what's your take on like stable coins, especially like the exotic things that could back and support stable coins? And that'll also, cue you up, Justin, to talk about USDF and how it differentiates. But I guess like the world I see with stable coins, like today there's just stable coins, non-yielding ones, USDT. Then you have like things like USDE. Then you have things that are coming on that are going to be backed by insurance premiums. A yield-bearing stable coin backed by insurance premium. There'll be more news on that once more details are out. But there is a tier 1 team working on that. I see also like a stable coin backed by specific index funds, yield-bearing index funds, or stable or derivatives that are backed by like high dividends stocks that could be backed by it as well. I think there's like this combinatorial innovation, I guess, of what can support a stable coin that can amplify and evangelize the dollar on a global scale is really, really interesting.
All right, that was a very long intro, but I will try and remember what you asked me about stablecoins. I think everybody likes stablecoins, and there are different applications for stablecoins. Then every stablecoin project probably appeals to a different type of user. So On Coinbase specifically, they have a close partnership with Circle, and both of these are centralized organizations. They're very effective at what they do at kind of the very highest levels of government, both U.S. government and as well as foreign governments. I mean, we've seen USDC and URC grow very, very fast on Aerodrome specifically. I think their strategy is going to kind of be a boots on the ground. Let's get in front of the retailers at the point of service and try and make it easier for users to use their Coinbase wallet to pay for stuff. So I think we've actually done an analysis comparing exchange rates for US dollars to euros. We basically looked at Wise, Wells Fargo, a couple others, compared the fees to what you could do on Aerodrome just swapping USDC to URC. And when you incorporate all the different exchange rates, the fees, the settlement times, you cannot beat blockchain rails. Like Aerodrome will save tons of money for users, allow instant settlement. That whole experience can be abstracted away, just with a simple mobile wallet. Users won't have any idea what's going on in the back end. They'll just see that they have more euros than they would have if they had waited in line at a airport foreign exchange desk, which are quite frankly a extortionist business. So yeah, blockchain rails just make everything easier and better for users. And I think, Justin nailed it. We need to get more support at like the government and regulatory levels, and kind of we're off to the races. So yeah, stable coins are good.
Whenever I think about stable coins, I think like there's like a lot of opportunity to like think about cool protocols, like the asymmetry folks just joined, and like all this yield and like different strategies. But like I always take a step back and I just think about like what is currently happening in the world and what do stable coins do better. And like that then takes you down a rabbit hole of like how big they're going to get. And like it's the really most boring things are what's going to drive the growth. Like a credit card fee, if you're a merchant, is like 2.5 or 3.5%. Okay, who accepts credit cards? And who would really benefit from that extra percentage by accepting stable coins? There's video games that have low margins. There's all sorts of retailers. And so like just today, or maybe yesterday, in the last 48 hours, I read about Coinbase partnering with Visa to expand their ability to spend stable coins at merchants. That'll only expand. PayPal's offering stable coins. And so I think, yeah.
There's restaurants are the most failed business models globally. They operate on 1% to 3% margin. Anything above like 2.5% is like mind blowing to a restaurant. These are everyday workers, from food carts to restaurants. They benefit. Property management companies actually also have a 3 to 5% margin. That's like really healthy as a property. So all rent, all HOAs, they would benefit. Games would be notorious to benefit. You could, no matter where you look, you will find a pain point that stablecoins can solve for, to your point.
And going back to the infrastructure,
3% is massive to solve for unnecessary waste on new rails. But yeah, I'd love to learn a little bit more about USDF and how it differentiates from the market of stablecoins today at some point.
Let's actually like just before we get into that, maybe we will even first of all, hello Hannah, thank you for joining as well. Before we get to your that, I want to even increase that build up in a way, and it's kind of what made me like want to do this discussion in the first place. Like, okay, how do we even start differentiating the different types of stablecoin? Like, for all the different layers of users, from the most sophisticated with the most capital to the simplest ones who come with only a few dollars, how would you describe like a bird's view of what's going on in the stablecoin landscape? What are the like different families of stablecoins? Who do you guys see as attracted where? And then we can start diving into like specific tokens. And for sure, let's use the opportunity to talk about USDAF by asymmetry. We got Cryptovestor here as well, so maybe he will share a bit about FXUSD and whatever he can. And take it. Hannah, you want to start maybe?
Yeah, definitely. So I think where I would first kind of group the stable coins, we've obviously done extensive research on this, but I would say there's the very stable, resilient, trusted stable coin, oldest in the ecosystem, which is DAI. DAI is a collateralized debt position. That's actually the same model we used for USDAF because it's proven to be so resilient. I would say the biggest pain point of DAI, though, is you can earn the savings rate, which is actually quite good. It's additional interest, but it might not always outpace inflation. And if you want to outpace inflation and do more complex things for higher yield, you have to transcend different dApps. So you can kind of view DAI as the most resilient stablecoin, but you're probably a DeFi power user to get access to it and get access to high yield with that stable. Then we see, I'll say just, I mean, everyone's aware of USDC, USDT, great for payments. They don't have significantly high yield opportunities, again, unless you're a power user and you're kind of, looping lending positions over different dApps. This has a lot of risk of liquidation, losing your collateral, et cetera. Then we get into the high yield stables. So looking at high yield stables, we used to have a DeFi native solution, UST. That was high yield, but with significant risk. Death spiral, we all saw that happen.
I remember that.
Yeah, right.
Quite a bit of risk over there, yeah.
Yeah, so you look at kind of the older high yield stables, maybe they didn't make it. They did not last throughout different market downturns. There should not be that existential risk to an asset that you're holding because it's stable in value. Like fundamentally, there's a mismatch, and it's really hard to find any investor that understands the risk that's willing to take that position. I think if they're holding a stable asset, they don't want a tail risk of losing everything. Then you look at high yield stables that go off chain, like Ethena. Ethena managed to amass a market cap of like 8 to 10 billion in a few months. High demand for that product, high demand for a high yield stable. But personally, I love self-custody, I love transparency, and I love open source. I think a lot of people in DeFi agree with me. And Ethena actually takes your funds off chain to generate a high yield. So you don't really know what's happening. It's not transparent. Someone else is custodying, your assets, and it's not DeFi native. So bringing all of that together at Asymmetry, we designed a high yield stable with yield similar to Ethena, but it's all coming to you from our dApp. You don't have to transcend different dApps. You don't have to bridge funds, nothing like that. It's very set it and forget it. And it has the resilience of DAI. It's a CDP backed stable. So it kind of brings the best of all the worlds. It's all on chain. We never take your assets off chain to generate yield. So it is, and there's no death spiral risk like UST. And that gets into the last and maybe most misunderstood part of the stablecoin ecosystem, which is flat coins. And flat coins, like the Ampleforth team has done a great job building one. And this one, it looks at past inflation and bakes that into the value of the asset, takes inflation from prior years. So actually, as you hold this flat coin, you're holding a stable coin that's also accounting for inflation. And this is something that I highly recommend anyone who isn't familiar to read docs on, get familiar with, because it is hard to understand technically, but it is a very fascinating form of a stablecoin. And we actually implemented that as collateral for the USDAF asset so that it is inflation resistant, because we believe that that's important too. So very long explanation. If anyone has anything to add.
Because it was with the overview as well. I think you, as usual, you did a brilliant job. Boz, you were the one asking about it. what kind of thoughts does it make you look? Both about the general landscape and like how does USDAF fit into all of that?
So it's not a secret that there is a strong thesis that probably everybody would agree around the DeFi renaissance. There's like that overarching DeFi renaissance narrative thesis that's happening, but I also see a stable coin renaissance, and I believe that should be its own category. Yeah. We're seeing a lot of activity and announcements from even the traditional, like Revolut announced a stable coin. Visa Network announced the ability for their network of institutional relationships to mint their stable coins on and be supported by their network. You know, we're seeing the Athenas, we're seeing the rebrand of Sky. There's going to be an incredible amount of competition given the market size, right? And it's not only going to be competing, but these stable coins are going to be also growing the pie significantly. So now we have 100 stable coins in the market, right? Everybody, you know, for their benefit can argue, why do we need that many stable coins? I could, you know, counter back with, why do we need all this different fiats? It just depends, you know, what the use case is, what the jurisdiction will support globally, and what will be compliant, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The reason I think USDF is considerably different, and why I'm super excited about it, is not, you know, all the points that Hannah obviously mentioned, but like, think about it from the use case of a user. I have USDC or USDT or USDE, and I have also a resilient stablecoin like USDAF. If I don't want to do anything and I'm just a super passive institutional investor, and I just want to, you know, hold stables in my wallet. I just want to hold stable. I don't want to do it. I just want to hold it. Why wouldn't I want USDA and USDAF? I think at the end of the day, it's like, hey, DeFi advisor, hey, Jason, do you want to keep money on the table? Do you want to just leave money on the table, given the resilience and the yield? And the answer is no. Like, at the end of the day, the market is efficient, and they will find the path for efficiency and yield while not compromising risk. And to me, as of today, USDF has the strongest value proposition to attract users around that. If Athena is any indication, I guess, of the adoption of why people want Athena and USDE, it's like they view USDE as like a savings account on steroids. USDF is like that, you know, on Elon Musk's rocket ship going to Mars. It's like a completely different realm of what we're talking about in terms of efficiency, resilience today. But at the same time, like Vestor can talk about FXUSD, which is a completely different model. But
can I comment real quick before you move on? So I agree with you, like flat coins are very innovative, but thus far, commodity money has not had product market fit, because I don't think we've ever had M2 money supply inflation in the history of the dollar. So
what's your thesis on why that hasn't taken?
Well, things move slowly when you're talking about governments that control fiat currencies. So I think it's really great to see leaders like Brian Armstrong, the Ampleforth team, and Asymmetry kind of embrace that. Frax also created FPI, had limited traction. I'm like, okay, cool. We have this commodity money. And I asked the Ampleforth team, I'm like, what do you do with it? And they're like, well, you just hold it in your portfolio like you would gold. And I'm like, okay. And like, I guess it would be more interesting if you could go to the store and buy, you know, a gallon of milk for the same number of, you know, spot tokens forever. That's really what it comes down to. Prices aren't going to change. The number of, you know, spot tokens to buy something is the same wherever you go forever. And I think that's pretty cool. But it's a hard thing for us to wrap our brains around because we have an existing paradigm of, you know, inflation, like prices always go up. So yeah, I think Asymmetry is really awesome and taking on a big role in kind of the adoption of this like spot flat coin. I'm excited to see how it works out.
Yeah, and I think another big reason why, I think there's two big reasons why we haven't seen, say, flat coins or low volatility commodity money really take off. One is people don't understand them. So even just getting out, we were talking about ways to get people to maybe understand this a few days ago, our marketing team, and I don't know about you guys, but Justin and I realized we both learned crypto from like whiteboard videos, like animated whiteboard videos on YouTube, that would just break down like how does Uniswap work, right? Like back in the day. We said let's go back to the the drawing board, I guess, quite literally, and let's explain how spot works. And it's a simple metaphor like that, where it's like you know, if you have X number of spot, or the price of milk is this much in spot, it won't change in 10 years. Like that is a great example. And I think so the understanding and education piece is one part, which we're tackling with Ampleforth, and we're going to put out very good educational content that's digestible and pretty low effort. Because as much fun as reading docs is for some of us, not everyone will read extensive docs. And then beyond that, the second reason why I think these monies haven't taken off, so many people that hold or have held spot say that there was nothing to do with it. We do like to be active and actively generate more yield on our assets, especially if something like that exists. And we've seen a huge response in the community of Ampleforth and spot holders saying, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I can finally do something with my spot and not just account for inflation, but actually outpace it. So I think that's where USDAF comes in. And if we can, find a new use case for that asset, I think it will motivate people. The additional yield will be large enough so that it will motivate people to take on the additional educational effort to understand it, and then also get onboarded into this new ecosystem and begin using these assets.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there's going to be a time when people are going to be like, why are you holding, a zero beta stablecoin? Like, why aren't you holding something that is keeping up with inflation automatically? And so I think there will be a time when that's going to be the case. And right now, I do agree that it's sort of an education issue. With FX, they had FETH for at least a year now, a little over a year. And if you go to their website and you look right now, FETH is at $1.04, like 1.04. So Ethereum is up 40% since that time. So since FETH tracks 10% of the volatility of ETH, FETH is up 4%. So it's basically tracking the volatility of ETH. In Spot's case and in Asymmetry's case and USDAF, you're dealing with like a CPI. You're dealing with the actual growth of the CPI, the actual rate of inflation. And so that's why I say there's going to be all of these different versions of stablecoins that are trying to either keep up with inflation and go beyond inflation with yield-bearing assets. Obviously we didn't really talk about it, but there's a whole world of real-world assets. The treasury-backed stablecoins, municipalities. I mean, there's so many different variations of this that we're going to see and experiment with. And I do think that we're going to see a renaissance. And I do believe, I agree with what Boz is saying, that stablecoins is going to be kind of in its own bull market in the next couple of months and years to come. And it's going to be a wild ride, I think. But I agree. I think it's an education issue. But that will slowly evaporate as it becomes just more standard and more common practice to use something. It just makes sense. Why would you hold, like if you had held FETH, instead of having $1,000, you'd have $1,040 right now. And so it'll make more sense as time passes for people to hold their savings in assets that track and keep up with inflation.
I think as we go forward, we're entering a time for Web3 apps where everything is getting abstracted. Every chain there's over 2,600 EVMs, and there's 50 launching like every month, and they all have partnerships with on-ramp providers. So like every chain signs up with MoonPay or Transact or Kado or, you name it, Stripe. And then every app has something called, like, they're increasingly having embedded wallets where you don't need to have a crypto wallet already. You just see a normal login like any other kind of app. And when you click the button, it generates a wallet. The user doesn't even know about it, but they have one. And this type of process is what's going to make it seamless for people to be using crypto apps. And some of these are going to be like, hey, connect your bank account. And the user, like they normally do in a game or whatever kind of app, they're going to connect their bank account. But this app it's going to bring the money on chain because the business model around removing credit card fees is beneficial. And this is when, like, stablecoins really become like this payment protocol, when they get deeply integrated into all these apps. And then it's very easy for people to get them and use them in the app to buy stuff, send money to friends. And then eventually these apps are going to get creative and they're going to be like, I want to make more money, or I'm going to be smarter. I'm going to make decisions about where I'm putting what stable coins I'm using here. Maybe there's unused money that should be in higher yields. And so I think we're at the beginning of like this trend of just, we've been digitizing money over the past couple decades with PayPal and the internet. And this is like the next chapter of like digitizing money again, of like bringing money on chain.
Exactly. And another thing to just kind of tap into that, like, I don't know if everybody knows, and, I have a little bit of background in the TradFi world, and, the way things are done right now is so archaic. Like, sending funds electronically right now, you typically through an ACH system, right, requires a notcha file, an ACH file, and these are like common.
What does it even mean, Vestor? What does it even mean?
A notcha file is the file format that the Federal Reserve takes to be able to process, overnight transactions. They're not even instant transactions. They're overnight, or in some cases, they're like in a couple of hours for faster transactions. But the ACH file is a glorified, comma delimited, special file format that, all of these institutions are used to producing, like your Amazons, your PayPals, this is how they process files. They get sent every night, or, in some cases they get sent unsecurely through FTP servers, and then they're, batched, and then transactions take place the next day. There are many, many mistakes that take place with files get corrupted. There is so much archaic infrastructure that we deal with. We talked a little bit about credit card processing. Those restaurants that Boz was talking about, they typically have to batch every night to be able to get their funds, within the next 2 or 3 days. So imagine that, imagine if you had a batch to get a transaction. And when I say batch, that means, they had, their restaurant saw 100 people today, they had 100 transactions, they had to batch that tonight so that they can get their funds in 2 days. Well, they still have to wait 2 days, or they pay a premium if they want to get a next day transfer, maybe an extra 3 or 4%. And again, if this was all done with stable coins, then the settlement would be instant. There would be no batching. It would be 100% secure. There wouldn't be any errors in ACH files. There wouldn't be any of these mistakes that are happening. So, we and even on wire transfers, we haven't really touched on that, but wire transfers, you have to walk into a bank, you got to fill out like 3 or 4 pages of paperwork to send out a wire, then you still have to wait a day or two for it to happen. It can't go into a country that, is designated, a terrorist country or whatever. You have to go through all the regulation. It's insane. Like, we literally do that now. This is how it's done now. Money is an Oracle database. Cash in your bank is an Oracle database. It could go down. It is not a decentralized world like Ethereum, like an EVM. It's much, much different. And so once that's opened up and once that's unlocked, it's going to change the way business is done around the world. And transactions are done as well.
Yeah. And that's when your bank will even let you wire money. Like, I have gone to the bank and tried to either withdraw money or wire money, and on multiple occasions been told I can't do it. I've gone in with my passport and my ID, And, they had me verify with the mobile app, and then they took control of it. And they're like, oh, but you don't have your debit card, so we can't do this. I was
Right.
like, but it's
It's
clearly
insane.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way,
Still
and
take-
I was wearing a crypto swag shirt, and it did say banks hate us, but still. Yeah.
And all you guys, if I understand correctly, you're US based, and I think that in many parts of the world, like people actually have to use this kind of stuff if they don't have like a digital alternative, because I think that many people in the Western world, and obviously, thankfully, here in Israel as well, they don't even understand the issues, the critical issues that crypto is aimed at solving. It's not even an issue, because as long as your credit card is working, you don't really, if you don't start questioning, you don't even understand that what's going on backstage and why. If you start dealing with stuff like international payments and stuff like that, then all of a sudden a lot of what Cryptovestor just mentioned becomes obvious. Like, why do you have to wait 2 weeks to get money? And once you realize that there's a way to get it instantly, you're like, when I tell some of my friends that, no, man, if I get like a transfer from, I don't know, a DAO that I don't even know where it's located, but they're not located in Israel, that's for sure. But
another thing too is like security. Like we can hold stable coins in a hardware wallet, and it's still tied. If it's a dollar-based stable coin, it's still tied to the dollar, but at least you're holding it in your own possession. You're not dealing with a bank that could go bankrupt, or maybe a bank that's closed, or whatever. You're not dealing with that. And then in the case of decentralized stablecoins, you're not even dealing with the bank. You're dealing with the asset that is backing the stablecoin. Could be Ethereum, could be spot, a variety of assets.
Look, one of the viewers, John Steps, I run a nonprofit. In order to fundraise in a compliant way, we pay close to 7%.
Exactly.
On every donation, 7%.
Like that should be illegal,
That should be illegal.
That's just theft. That's what it is.
Exactly. And you know why? And you know why they do it? Because they can.
Because they can. Just like Western Union. Because
that's all there is to it, man. Because they can. They got their hands there. When you have your hand on something, you're tempted after a while. Even if at first you're not into it, how do you know what's going to happen in a few years, in a generation or whatever, when the temptation is still there and someone has the power? Ultimately, they usually use it.
Can I just pose a question for the gigabrains on this real quick? Is just taking it slightly in a different direction. What kind of financial service today that isn't present on DeFi has not become a Web3 app would you see as another killer app potentially that would utilize stable coins today? Like, obviously we see, the Aves of the world, but what do you think is a good pain point for this market today, not 20 years from now, that would utilize stable coins in a way that would help make sense for adoption?
I think it would be cool if, obviously I'm biased towards saying, inflation resistant stablecoin. That would be cool. One that's easy to use and get additional yield on. But I think it would actually be cool if you also had just one DApp where you could have your longer term savings in one bucket, and that is accruing interest that's hopefully outpacing inflation. Maybe that's USDAF, maybe someone else builds this DApp. And then kind of another just fast wallet bucket where it's you can re-up that every so often, and that's used in whatever currency is best for smaller payments. Because a lot of us do, the market has shown that people really like payments in USDC. It's preferred. It's like that or ETH, depending on kind of your exposure. But I think it would just be cool if you had the option of, say you could always re-up the fast payments to $1,000. That could be automated too. If it drops below a certain amount, it re-ups from your other bucket that's earning interest. But it would just make it a really passive way of knowing that your stables are earning interest and outpacing inflation. But you can still benefit from the ease of using them for different payments as well. Yeah. So if people did, still prefer USDC payments, but you had USDAF outpacing inflation and earning additional interest, you'd have that bucket and most of your assets would be there. And then whenever your USDC balance got below $1,000, if you set that parameter, it would just sell you $1,000 worth of USDC and re-up it. And it could just automatically do that. I think that would be really cool, kind of like a savings bucket, spending bucket.
Yeah, and to take it even a step further, Hannah, you could do something where maybe this is an idea for a symmetry, but I was always thinking like having that bucket, like you're saying, that's always earning, outpaced inflation, earnings. But imagine if you could just automatically, tie it to a debit card or, a tap or whatever, and it automatically does the swap behind the scenes where it's taking your, $1.04 version of, USDAF and swapping it for USDC to automatically make the payment at the payment terminal at the restaurant, for example. So yeah, there's these types of mechanisms that are going to be able to be created, which is going to empower savings and being able to outpace inflation. So I agree. I think that's a big deal.
Something that other things said
Go ahead,
earlier is like all these different stable coins. And I was like, this is where it comes down to the application specific stable coins. So, we have the technology that you should be able to pay with whatever you want. It shouldn't need to be a stable coin. We have the rails in the back end with liquidity pools. You can trade any asset to any asset. So the abstraction by the wallet and the point of sale should be in whatever the retailer accepts. It could even be a leverage oriented stable coin. Like I've got ETH, but I don't want to sell it. I just want to mint a little bit of my stable coins. The staking rewards for my staked ETH or whatever will pay back that amount I just spent. Or in the case of Velodrome, I've got VE Velo, and I want to get, I'll use my voting rewards to pay back whatever debt I just, generated. I'm thinking big here, but like we have all of these opportunities in DeFi that are being, I guess, utilized by a small minority of us, but not accessible to like the masses. But yeah, the tech is there. It just comes down to, can we make it accessible and usable by everybody, and make sure that the end point of sale, point of service entities are also accepting it.
And then can we integrate with people like PayPal, Visa? Right now, it seems they're pretty comfortable with USDC, but can we get them comfortable with, say, a flat coin, and people can choose which option they want? A flat coin would essentially cover, the cost of inflation, or maybe even would start cutting down on that 3% fee that most people are always paying and unaware of, something like that.
Let's talk about that for a second, because I had an idea about that. So, maybe we live in a world where, not every stable coin gets adopted by these huge conglomerates. Maybe it is USDT and USDC for at least the next foreseeable future, right? But that doesn't stop like things like USDAF and FETH and FXUSD and all these other decentralized stables because think about it. If I can earn 30% a year on my decentralized stable, and I can swap it for USDC when I need to, I mean, that's probably going to be a world we live in for a little while. It might be on-chain life for a little while, and then eventually the bigger ones are going to start kind of rising to the top and get adopted by the larger corporations. But I can see a world where there's going to be, especially in the next upcoming bull run, there's going to be a world where we're going to see 20 to 40% APYs on stable. And the really savvy people are going to adapt to that. They're going to earn that, and they're going to swap their preferred stablecoin to use in whatever method they want to use currently.
Yeah. So here's like a killer app that I would love to see, and this kind of like this was inspired by Jason's take about rewards, company reward points. especially gift cards that sit on the balance of these companies. So realistic use case is Starbucks. Starbucks has $1 billion today in gift cards, in sales of gift cards. That represents almost 8% of their annual sales today. 13 billion annual sales for Starbucks, 1 billion of that on an annualized basis is in gift cards. Since this is programmable money, it would be like, hey, Hannah, go talk to Starbucks' board. $1 billion, every single dollar that comes in gets automatically converted into a USDF powered Starbucks rewards card. Why would this matter? Well, it would be cool as a retention mechanism so that when you gift somebody, I want to gift Jason $100 of gift cards, on Christmas is coming around the corner. When they go and spend that, they didn't get $100. Now it's like 110, 120, 130. It's a stable coin that is continually accruing. Starbucks benefits because there is more being spent. Jason benefits because it's the value that keeps on giving. USDF benefits because it's clearly more adoption. Heck, Starbucks could further benefit by adding like a custody fee of, some 5% holding of USD or custody of USDF on behalf of the user. Now there's like 2 revenue streams. I think rewards today and loyalty points are largely unexplored in a manner that takes advantage of programmable money for yield-bearing stablecoins and how they can impact activation and retention for a variety of brands. You can think about lodging and hospitality, obviously goods and services like Starbucks, but I think there is something there as a killer app that, today I think crypto.com has a debit card that can be tied to your stablecoins. It doesn't, like, the ability for that happens. And it's fairly capable. It's not like we need to rebuild all these different things, but it's like, what could it solve for today that would make an experience that presently exists, a purchasing experience presently, more enjoyable, or that would be a value add for all the parties involved. But that to me is like a killer app waiting to happen.
I think aside from just like general adoption by like banks, so like you don't need a Coinbase account to get on chain. Like you just, you have your bank account, like that kind of stuff will be big. Then there's this emerging, like it's like super tiny, but it's just beginning. And like in AI, you have like agents where you can have an AI agent that does something. It's a super sophisticated AI thing. And it's going to be like the next website or app, agents, and agents will pay other agents, and they're going to do these payments using crypto based on their efficiency. And there's going to be a whole new world that explodes of like machine to machine payments where AI agents are paying robots and they're paying other AIs for services to complete their task. Like when you use ChatGPT, you might want to do research and it might leverage other research agents. Those agents might need to leverage robots that are doing experiments and so like that's a whole universe that's just beginning. But it's sort of like what crypto payments that are super efficient and divisible are like really primed for.
Yeah, and another thing too, to tie into what you were saying, Jason, we haven't really talked about micropayments, and the fact that right now it really doesn't pay for things to cost a whole lot less than $1 or $2. You don't want to charge that on your card. You don't want to. So what if you wanted to pay 2 pennies or a penny or a fraction of a penny to access an article online or do something or pay an AI agent or perform a small task? Like those kinds of things are not functionable right now with the current financial system because of the cost to move money around.
Such a good point. Such a good point.
Yeah, I don't think we're thinking about that, but imagine a world where things are just sort of, where you get streamed a payment, And it's in small increments, and it's by the second, not by the hour, not by the minute, but by the second. So there's a world of transfers that we don't really see today because it doesn't exist.
What'd be cool is like another really cool use case. Hi, my name is Boz. I am taking a $100,000 loan to buy a house or an apartment or something. There's a mortgage I create money. It's denominated in dollars. If it was denominated in a yield-bearing stablecoin, the entity that originates the loan for me, a bank or whatnot, could use the interest accrued on that loan to help drive down my costs. So think about student loans, think about mortgages, think about car loans. So it's kind of like a subsidized loan in a way that could outcompete all the loans originating across the space. It would be, think about that. Like today, mortgage rates are like what, 6-7%. If it was 4%, regardless of what the Fed Reserve's rates are, because the yield is being originated to subsidize some of my costs, imagine how many families that could help to have, an extra few $100s extra a month. I could accelerate my payments across the loan. I could provide more for my family. I could buy more Bitcoin. But in a way, there's a lot of flexibility that could originate from, that could be applicable in this case, where again, the entity that's originated gets their money regardless of what the rates are, but the yield can be subsidizing your balance owed to that entity, where all parties win. And it's super efficient from a market perspective. That would be like a killer app waiting to happen because the market's there. People want to have more loans or originate loans. Like if a mortgage broker buys in this thing, they could outcompete everyone around them. They would be drowning in an opportunity.
I also think what gets crazy is just simply by having money on chain, you open up new markets that just were always in secondary markets. So like when video games have on-chain assets and people are using stable coins to buy them, because they own those assets, they can sell them. And there's all this proof that like Call of Duty or Counter-Strike, people sell skins, people buy Fortnite accounts to get old skins. That's just proof that people want to do it. And if that becomes normal for every video game, then who knows how big that economy could get. We don't really know because there's a whole lot of emotions that aren't really tied to video games, which is like valuing your assets. And video games are so much bigger than every other entertainment industry.
Yeah, people don't even realize, those who don't play or have friends that play, they tend to forget and ignore. But these industries are huge, and they're facing this real disruption. I have a gamer friend, really like a pure gamer, you know what I mean? That's his thing. And up till just recently, he wasn't even willing to hear about it because gamers have a lot of complaints about how the industry have.
That's because they care. They're fans, and we complain about things we care about because we have standards.
Yeah. And they really are like the classic gamers of my generation. And there are many people who still play with these games. Yeah, it really is a thing because we grew up into this culture, and like the new games, they have developed all these kinds of mechanics and like online economies that people are often like really against, and like the classic gamers really don't like. But crypto is about to like create all kinds of different ways that will onboard all gamers. Like there's no way that a studio can create a game that is as profitable and as motivating and has incentives for the users themselves, like without integrating crypto. It's pretty. I can't think of one way that they can compete, honestly. And I think that that's a huge industry as well. That's a very good point.
If you look at charts of like the entertainment industry and revenue, like gaming dwarfs everything combined, and it's just not appreciated, and it's growing. It's growing at a clip, and so I feel like it's way underexplored. People have strong emotions about games. There's incredible fandoms there. Like the average kid watches like 40 hours of Twitch a week. It's like Twitch and Netflix and YouTube. So that's going to be crazy. Creator payments. It's the new sort of digital entertainment economy that's going to be fueled by this stuff.
I agree. By the way, Boz, what's to your question earlier about like next big app or narrative outside of stablecoins, of course, I actually think that copy investing is still way underexplored. Like I think like that it's so simple, like on paper at least. It's literally out there, and most people, they won't care about like the kind of stuff that we often enjoy and talk about. You know what I mean? Like
how many people like I up until stablecoins, like I never held my cash. My cash was in my savings account, and I never really thought about what to do with it. But like it's with stablecoins, it would be very easy. And like Arrow typed in the chat, like this goes with the assumption that one day people won't know they're on chain. Like the dev tooling and infrastructure is there, and everybody building apps now is using all these technologies that make the UX feel like normal apps. It blows my mind that all the major DeFi protocols, like they don't use embedded wallets. It totally blows my mind that a whole generation of DeFi talks about onboarding the next generation of users, but they don't take this easy UX win of just allowing people to log in with a Google wallet or something or a phone number. It's right there. Products are free.
Because like for most people, man, I start telling them about stablecoins and I throw two names. You've lost the plot. You know what I mean? Like you don't have the hook. But behind the scenes,
most people probably won't even make decisions about what stablecoins they use. They're going to use some app. That app is going to decide, and it's going to make a good decision for you.
Yeah, it's a good point. Like right now, we do everything manually, right? Like we want to initiate a swap. We want to go to an app. We do the swap. It goes into our wallet. But in the future, all this stuff is going to be happening underneath, and we're not going to see it, know about it. It's just part of the infrastructure, And I agree too. I think gaming is probably really underappreciated. I mean, I can imagine a world where you're in a game and you're earning points or whatever, and your points are convertible for USDC, whatever, like however the game works, or maybe you're accruing resources in a game like World of Warcraft or something, and these resources are tradable on Uniswap, for stables. So yeah, it's huge. It's a huge world out there, and I think that's why it's been pretty much my thesis that stablecoins are the next big thing.
They're already here.
Go ahead, Boz. Sorry.
No, they're already here. It's $180 billion is the next big thing. It's already here. Now it's just a matter of how do we get from 180 to the 3 trillion. Like, in terms of teams, Circle.
So how do we get there, guys?
Well, there's a lot of stable coins right now, so it really just depends on the business development efforts, right? When you look at Tether and when you look at Circle, their business development team it's world class, right? And that because of the adoption metrics around those stable coins for merchants and users. I think I tweeted this morning a map of where USDC is accepted. That is accelerating. The USDC to Euro stablecoin swap is continuing to accelerate because that is the largest forex market in the world. I think it's like $7 trillion of volume of all forex globally, and like 46% of that is between the dollar and the euro. So again, it's the largest market, and that's continually accelerating. USDT, like props to Tron and USD and Tether. Like anytime I go to Latin America or Dubai or Singapore, like everybody there in the streets, like just whatever they're doing, when they want to get paid in stablecoin, they want USDT and they want it to be on Tron.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, how does a coffee shop in Medellin accept USDT on Tron? Somebody sold them on it, right? Yeah. How does USDT get accepted at, like, you know, a restaurant on Tron? Somebody came in, educated the owner and the staff to do all these things. And Tether just minted another $1 billion this morning or yesterday morning for Tron. Like, I am not a fan of Tron. I don't believe, you know, I think they have a lot of issues. Yeah, so do I. Well, I think they have a leader issue. I think Tron, the blockchain, is doing what it's doing, right? But I'm just not a fan of Justin Sun. Yeah. If you put somebody with a better integrity and actually a positive reputation, I think Tron, you know, goes to a different level, frankly.
You know, at least the way I see it.
I cannot discount their business development team. It's like, you know, you could denounce Tron for all you want, but it's like their business development team is doing it because developing countries in strong regions like Africa, Latin America, and APAC love USDT and love Tron. So
it's PMF, man.
It's PMF. But in developed countries, like, USDC is leading the pack. So again, it's like there's two different markets. There's two different product strategies. The go-to-markets are being executed relevant to people's skill sets around that. It's really exciting to see how this morphs over time.
It's actually, you know, here in Israel, for example, if you actually, like, in the rare cases that someone is willing to accept like a crypto payment, it's basically almost 100% of the time, it's only USDT, on Ethereum, or on Tron. And I think that Tron really has...
No L2s, like no optimism. No,
they don't even know what you're talking about, man. Like, I come to tell someone, like, can I pay you an arbitrage?
Here's the question. Should that matter? Like, you know, when you walk into, here's the analogy. When you walk into a restaurant, you know, you and I are walking around Tel Aviv. We want some hummus and whatever. Like, you see the card, like, it's like, we accept Visa, MasterCard, American Express, whatever. It's like, you know, it doesn't, honestly, I think networks shouldn't matter. I think that's like a software thing. You should come in, you should take this, you should tap. If people accept only USDT and you have USDC, it should automatically swap, wrap, bridge, whatever, and it should settle immediately on what the merchant accepts. It should not matter what stablecoin. There should be like whitelisted stablecoins, depending on the merchant or the service or whatever it is at the end of the day. But that complexity should be abstracted away from small businesses. They should just say, hey, I accept stablecoins. It's like, great. Which ones? You're like, you know what? I'm in the US. I care about only USDC. If somebody's in Singapore, it's like, great. I want USDT on Tron. Who cares?
Yeah, by the way, the switch, at least theoretically, the switch can happen without, like, in the middle of it. Like, if someone has a specific stablecoin, but the other wants to get a different stablecoin, there's no actual reason that it won't, like, he uses this one, but the other guy gets that one, and an automatic trade is created. Or
like, we shouldn't have to go trade our stablecoin, then go to the restaurant. We should have an ability where it's just automatic, and that's going to happen. That's coming. I mean, that's part of it.
That's a big part of the point. And I think that with Tron specifically, it's mostly because they provided this service to this area first. And after you get like a specific Lindy effect, you're not easily you don't switch that easily, even if it is like more centralized and whatever, but it works for you.
To their credit, they have first mover advantage.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not in the camp of like, you have to be first to win it all, but they did the hard part first. They evangelized, they sold. So now, you know, when, you know, Cryptovestor comes in, wants to sell FXUSD, whatever it is, the education component's already resolved. Now it's just like, what is what is a differentiator, and why should they accept FXUSD at the end of the day? And that largely is a completely different pitch than let me tell you about a stable coin, how it works, etc. So I think the hard part is done for people who have adopted stable coins already. But now it's like, what other stable coins can they and are willing to accept? And what does the onboarding process at the end of the day look like? When you look at adoption and like business development, which includes onboarding, you have to look at well-capitalized teams that really understand fundamentally what business to develop. How do you get people on the phone? How do you sell them? And how do you onboard them? Because a relation, like a Twitter announcement, is not a partnership. It's the onboarding.
Right.
It's the warm touches every month. What's going on? Like this is an account management issue, and those things need to be evolved for stablecoin teams. It's not just let's launch and let's let it sit on chain doing nothing. It's like, how do you evangelize that to raise awareness for adoption beyond crypto native users?
So
another thing too that sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that it's true. It's such a big process, and I definitely want to hear what you have to say about it.
Cool.
And if you can even take it from there into specifically FXUSD and we touch on that part as well, I would love that.
Sure. I mean, that was my point. That it, like I was saying before, there can be one or two big players like USDC and USDT. They can run they can do all of the work that Boz was talking about, all of the groundwork, getting merchants, signed up for it, whatever. But the decentralized world is still going to play a pretty big part of this. And you're going to have, that's what I'm saying, like you're going to have stables like FXUSD, which are going to be decentralized based on the backing of Ethereum. And they're going to be able to earn super high yields, 30, 40%, even up to 50% in certain cases. You're going to have people that are going to earn these super high yields on chain and then convert back to their preferred stablecoin like USDC or USDT. So I predict that the adoption of USDC and USDT, centralized stablecoins, actually is going to help decentralized stablecoins in the future, because the more they grow, the more reason you want to have these high yielding on-chain assets that you can convert to any of these other centralized stablecoins via a curve pool or Velodrome or any of these decentralized DEXes. I'm probably a good time to mention a little bit about FX 2.0. White paper is due to come out here shortly. Again, it takes the same concept as FX1, which is the splitting of Ethereum into two assets, a decentralized stablecoin on one end and a token on the other end that absorbs all the extra volatility. And so what they've been able to do with 2.0 is a little different, because they've been able to still retain the same FXUSD, but now migrate to what's called the next position, which is sort of like the X token, but now with fixed leverage. So you can have fixed leverage, non-liquidatable, zero funding fees, and so tied to the stablecoin. So the more demand that there is for the leverage product, the more the actual stablecoin grows in size. So we know that perpetual exchanges and these leverage exchanges are very, very they're huge. They're big money makers. The idea here is that we don't need to encourage the supply of FXUSD by going into merchants and whatever. All we need to do is encourage the leverage trading. And if people are interested in getting decentralized fixed leverage with no funding costs and zero liquidation, then the idea is that FXUSD will have an inherent sink and grow in supply. And so again, that very same FXUSD that's growing in supply can be deposited into the stability pool, can earn super, super high yields, 30, 40%, and can be swapped for USDC or PayPal USD or any of these other stablecoins that we're talking about. So Different mechanism, very cool, very exciting to see, a leveraged product kind of tied to a stable coin. We've never seen that before. And I've been working with the team for the last couple of months, and we're really excited to see this come out. Paper should be out, I believe, on Monday.
Here's a question: who's the ideal user for FXUSD? Is it DAO Treasuries? Is it the holder?
Yeah, I think it's going to be DAO Treasuries. It's going to be anyone on chain holding, a stable that wants to earn a high yield, because you can basically take your FXUSD and keep it it's going to be a delta neutral stability pool. So you're going to be able to put the FXUSD and earn.
And it's backed by the most liquid market, on chain. ETH.
Right. It's primarily an on chain market, I would say. But remember, keeping in mind that you're not dealing with centralized risks like USDC, you're not dealing with the banks, the banking system, you're not dealing with the US government. You are technically still tied to the dollar, but you're dealing with the backing of Ethereum. So unless Ethereum just goes away, it goes to zero, then FXUSD will always hold its value. That's the idea.
By the way, Vestor, and even before, I want to ask you about like is ETH the only asset back in FXUSD?
Right. Right now, it's going to be the first one, but in the future, we can add assets to it. So we can add WBTC if we wanted to. We can add other major or other LSTs. So there could be a basket of assets that actually form the backing of FXUSD. So no, it's not going to be just limited. That's why I'm saying FXUSD has a huge potential market. And remember, and here's another thing. All these other stablecoin projects, they have to build liquidity. They have to create a curve pool. They have to deposit, the initial liquidity, and they have to get people they have to attract liquidity to that curve pool. FXUSD, FX does not need to maintain its own liquidity. That's a very, very important point, and I don't think people understand it. What that means is it automatically taps into the curve pools that are pre-existing, like STETH and ETH curve pool, for example. Since STETH is going to be our first main asset for FX 2.0, it's tapping into the STETH/ETH curve pool. As long as there's liquidity there, which I think there's like $50 or $100 million right now, then there will always be a way to swap in and out. So it doesn't require the building of additional liquidity, exogenous liquidity for the stablecoin, like Frax has to do, or even CRV-USD has to do.
Interesting points, man. And
so it's massive.
Yeah, first of all, I agree. And just for transparency, for those who may don't know it somehow, I'm a community booster for Aladdin DAO and its project, including FX as well. And I think that the team and the community, man, is really fortunate that you, I think it was about a year ago, maybe even more than that, that you really started getting more and more involved. And I think that you've had watching it from the side and doing a team DeFi with you joining at some point as well. I really think that the community is very fortunate. The community and the team are very fortunate to have you have such a huge impact. I think you've had a huge impact actually on the project. So much respect for that. And I really like the point that Boz was making earlier. I think it was a very spot on question about, okay, who are the actual users? And I think creating a product that serves DAO treasuries at first, it's so much more convenient because it's capital that's already there, and these are users that can actually take advantage of the situation because you have a much shorter educational process with them. It's more like of a BD issue, between the teams, rather than because it will still take me a while to tell my friends. My normie friends, guys, you should really instead of holding all these dollars that you keep putting in the bank, why not buy some FXUSD? So but there's still a huge big gap there.
Something else I was going to mention. I know, Boz, you mentioned who else besides the DAO treasuries? There have been talks with other stablecoin projects that actually want to use FXUSD because of the high yield, and so that that's probably likely to take place, hopefully in the future.
What, I guess, two open questions for you. What stable coin has launched that you are extremely bullish on that has not performed today?
CRV USD is going to be a big changer, I think. I really do believe that CRV USD has the potential to be very,
I would
very
agree.
good. And nobody's really seeing it now, but that leverage mechanism is very, very unique. When leverage starts coming back into the system, back into Ethereum, there's going to be demand for being able to mint CRV USD. And with other things that they're working on in the background, like their staked CRV USD, it's going to create, you know, lower interest rates, higher supply. I don't think we've fully seen that game play out yet, but when that happens, there's going to be a lot of leverage demand, and rates are going to be relatively low, and a lot of fees are going to start coming into Curve.
I would fully agree with that assessment.
Yeah.
Can you guys maybe elaborate a bit on like why specifically, what are the specific advantages with CRV USD other than so many other stablecoins, and maybe a bit about that leverage mechanism that you've mentioned, Cryptovestor, that you guys think that really is going to attract a lot of capital? And also, you know, at least the way I see it, I think that once, if and when CRV USD really starts picking up, I actually think that it will draw, like, I think many other stable coins will start benefiting from it, you know?
I mean, I see a lot of different things. Like, for example, when the leverage comes back into the system, and when I say that, I mean, like, you know, Ethereum is a $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, and you got people now, they're like, I don't want to sell my Ethereum, but I just want to mint, you know, I take out a loan, and you're going to see a lot of that. So there's going to be a lot of deposits into CRV USD. You're going to see that then being used in high yielding strategies, probably most likely. I know that there's been some talks of some new products that Convex is coming out with that could be huge. And I think it relates to, you know, some of the stablecoin stuff too. So, and Curve. So I just think that, you know, CRV USD is very, very underestimated, and I think it's going to be a huge player. I think another thing that they do is they control the DEX too, so they can make it. They could literally say CRV USD is gonna. If you use CRV USD, your fees are going to be lower on Curve, or you know, they can do all kinds of things, interesting things like that. That other stablecoins really don't have the option to do something like that.
Good points.
Yeah. So when you see leverage coming back in, you see Ethereum going up in price, you're going to see the minting of that stablecoin probably increase significantly. And then FXUSD is kind of different too. You know, it's on the other spectrum. You know, people who want leverage on ETH, you know, and it's the byproduct is the result is more and more minting of FXUSD to maintain that leverage. Very, very novel designs, two very, very novel designs, which I haven't seen very much of. Like, to be honest, like most stable coins are just depositing dollars into a bank or into treasuries and minting a token. And yeah, that's cool. And I'm sure that's going to, and you know, we see a lot of that. And I think that's going to be part of it. But when you start seeing some of these interesting mechanisms that are going to really shoot supply up, that's what's going to make this really a game changer. I think I do really focus on CRV USD and FXUSD, and now recently more with USD AF, because I do think that the asymmetry team has a really good shot at making you know, the inflation resistant stablecoin a real thing. We tried with FX to do it with FETH. I think it's a great product. It works. It proves it works because right now it's trading at $1.04, which is, you know, I think ETH is up 40%. So the stablecoin is up 4%. It works. It's just that explaining that to people is very tricky. And, you know, I kind of told that to Hannah. I was like, look, that's one of the biggest hurdles with these types of flat coins is really kind of getting over that that mental barrier and the mental gymnastics you need to do to kind of understand that.
Yeah. People really like the fact that the dollar is exactly $1. You know,
Exactly.
in a way, they want it to be exactly $1 because of the certainty aspect. Because people, they always look for certainty rather
Right.
than
But that's
uncertainty.
okay for buying things, DeFi Advisor. So if when I want to
True,
buy
true.
a coffee, I want to pay exactly the $2 that it costs for their coffee or whatever it is. But when I'm saving my money and I have it in my wallet, I want it to be worth, I want the $1.04 of FETH. So that when I swap it to USDC, I'm getting, you know, on $1,000, I'm getting 1,040 USDC back. So it's just a mental thing. Like right now, we're like the ones we're the geeks are here understanding this, but eventually it's going to be all automatic and people will be. Now, here's an interesting thought experiment. What does this do to inflation? I mean, we're probably too small to even affect inflation, but what does this do to inflation if people can suddenly beat it, you know, by just holding a different type of a variation of $1, a flat coin, you know, like I just thought about it. I was like, wow, you know, what does this do when, you know, hundreds of millions of people are holding tokens that beat inflation? Like, does the government print more? You know, like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how that would work. It'd be kind of crazy to watch.
You know, in a way, by the way, I think that one of the things that make me so excited about stablecoins is like when you go back to this basic crypto values and like principle, like stuff that crypto actually represents for users. I think that the stablecoin is the only thing that can actually save us from CBDCs. You know, like we have to have established competitors on the dollar market before they start telling all of us that, yeah, you can only have this digital dollar or digital shekel, and we will tell you what you can buy and where, you know, and when.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of the dystopian part of stablecoins. If you think about it, you know, like stablecoins kind of morph into, you know, CBDCs, but I think we're going to live in a world where there will be CBDCs and there won't be. You know, like there's going to be some countries that just adopt them, and
but because of the
is.
alternative Cryptovestor,
I think
because there will be a decentralized alternative, they won't. They will have to conform to us rather than us conforming to them.
Exactly.
That's basically my point.
Exactly. And so you'll see people exiting the CBDCs into things like CRV-USD or FXUSD because they're completely decentralized and, you know, no blacklists and things like that. So you're going to see, that's why I say CBDCs and stablecoins in general, even centralized government stablecoins or bank stablecoins are going to be good for the decentralized ones. When you think about it that way, you know, it's not like, oh, the centralized ones win and the
they will be our
ones
biggest catalyst. Cryptovestor.
Exactly. It's the biggest catalyst.
They will be our number one marketing thing.
Yeah, I think there will be CBDCs, and I think they will come from more restrictive countries. And I would very much argue that the European Union, which is pushing ahead on this, as much as they want to paint the picture, it's great and it's freedom. It's like, that is very authoritarian. That is very Orwellian to implement CBDCs. That is the biggest threat to financial freedom, I think, and that is why they're worried. So I think if your country is implementing, like, yes, will there be a net positive? Sure. But I think it's going to be pushed more by authoritarian regimes under the guise of regulation and compliance.
As always.
As always. That to me is the biggest, and that's why there's a lot of initiatives here in the US. A lot of states, a lot of are creating laws at the state level banning the use of that because and there are some, like Elizabeth Warren, who is saying like, oh, we need CBDCs and compliance. I'm like, do you know how like the dollar works today? Can you track the dollar? What it's doing?
They want to protect you guys.
Solve for that. Yeah, let's solve for that before we talk about
the block right now. I just retweeted it. It says, the headline is, U.S. Treasury say stablecoin growth is increasing demand for T-bills. Stablecoin growth is increasing demand for government treasury bills. Like, do we understand what that means? Like how big that is? Like it's
well, as bullish as that is, there's also an increased risk given the debt situation.
Well, yeah.
It's leading, like
No
the
question
Empire
there.
podcast is talking about the only way out of this is potential dollar debasement.
Which is why we need
credit
to-
rating for the U.S. is now being scrutinized globally, given our debt position. We're adding like $1 trillion over like 2 months.
Yeah, it's getting out
to our debt,
it's getting out of
right?
control.
So let's just say at what point, like the promise of America, coming clean on its debt is fine, but as much as it is increasing demand on treasury bills, it's also decreasing demand from nation states for bonds. Like I was reading, China reduced its T-bill and bond exposure by like 40%, 46% or something.
Wow.
No country is really increasing its position on treasuries. The only thing that's like
Just the U.S.
the only major player that is buying T-bills right now is like Tether.
Yeah.
And that to me is scary because now we're assuming.
Who did you
the
say?
risk.
Who did you say the biggest buyer is? now?
Tether. Like countries, you look at like what country is Japan increasing exposure to stablecoin? They're like bankrupt. They're approaching bankruptcy, right? It's their currency right now is insane. Is China increasing its T-bill? No, they're reducing it, and they've effectively reduced exposure by 50%. Is India increasing? Nope. The answer is no. Is Germany? Nope.
Mexico, neither.
Like Mexico, like no country. Like there's an EU report yesterday that I was glancing at. The European Union has not, their economy has not grown effectively over the last 20 years. 0% growth rate in the EU. So it's like, okay, so the economy is not going. Like Volkswagen is shutting down their plant in Germany. Like how insane is that? It's like Ford shutting down a factory in the U.S. Like that's what it means. It's insane. So economic policies are dictating globally what's happening on an individual state by state basis. But crypto now is kind of like becoming the golden child, but it's also assuming the associated risk with misallocation of government funds and uncontrolled spending. At some point, things are going to break. What breaks matters, I think. But if you have, like Tether to me is like, doing the government a huge favor. At the same time, if what happens when things break and the impact on US Treasury bills, and what kind of impact would that have on USDT, given that it's been backed considerably by Tether or by Treasury bills, among other things. And it's kind of like a risk profile that is growing. So that's what keeps me up at night. Like, yeah, I'm glad that there is like a supply sink or demand accruing for U.S. Treasury bills, but at some point you need to fix the spending problems to maintain integrity in the system and stability at some point.
I don't know if you guys saw this, but John Steps is saying here that he bets that USDC will be turned into a CBDC, either by taking over Circle or incorporating it in some way. I you know what? I've had that thought. Like, it's certainly possible. It's not outside of the realm of possibility.
Isn't it their best business strategy? Like if you're Jeremy Allaire, isn't that what you're doing?
That's a good assumption. I don't see that happening.
I hope it doesn't, but I mean,
I see the U.S. like treasuries adopting USDC, but I don't see it as being converted into CBDC. That's a very
like, what do you mean when you say adopting? Like,
I think the trend, like,
be a difference?
I think
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the Fed, like, there's no reason for the Fed to they could use USDC, they could use USDT. They should be able to use a dollar denominated, like a whitelisted dollar denominated stablecoin. But converting it into a CBDC is a very fundamentally different.
Yeah.
Because they control.
But what if it's a de facto CBDC? You know what I mean?
I mean,
kind of already
It is okay. Hold on. Is there a non-zero chance this happens? Yes, but like the Fed Reserve, like the Fed doing this would require literally acquiring Circle. The Fed does not acquire companies, for one.
Yeah.
You know, like, and what does that even mean? Like they nationalize Circle and take it. Like, I just don't see that.
Weird.
at all.
Yeah, I agree.
It sounds like something in a third world country would do, you know. But yeah,
Yeah, like if you're in a third world country, like, hey, I'm Venezuela and I'm going to nationalize, you know, all the oil rigs and all the banks. Yeah, I could see that. But again, if you're an authoritarian regime, yes, you're going to do CBDC. Back to my original point. If the Fed was smart, I think it would take a step back, allow the Circles of the world, the Tethers of the world
to exist,
to continually evangelize and increase the market share of the dollar globally. And that gives it much more flexibility on what it can and can't do.
I think, boss, that
and that's assuming, by the way, one more thing. That's assuming whoever becomes president, but there's tremendous amount of scrutiny against the Federal Reserve today, with calls from senators, not from me, from senators, to like get rid of it. So, you know, do we see some sort of change in the next 20 years around how it's being managed and how maybe? I think that would be much more likely to happen than a CBDC in the US. There's just no political support. There's no social support. There's no bank support for this thing. There's no economical support. Like nobody wants CBDCs in the US. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, I mean, there's a difference between like a stable coin that has close ties to the government, as opposed to a CBDC that's being tracked and traced, and you know, you can't spend it here, can't spend, you know, anything there. That will happen. I mean, the actual technology exists for the stablecoin to be permissioned, you know, and so that it can. We haven't talked about that, but the Orwellian side of things is where, you know, my USDC can only be spent at, you know, Walmart.
Exactly.
And I can't spend it somewhere else outside of the country. Or I'm sure that other, you know, dictatorship type or, you know, countries will adopt something like that, but there's certainly a possibility.
Yeah. And, you know, I actually think that if you have a de facto, like if something that has like, if the government can, in a way, enforce how the token is controlled, you know what I mean? Like if they can blacklist someone, then still we like the common, like the specific user, they're still not protected. And I think in a way that's what's so important about the whole decentralized stablecoin industry, is only because it will allow people like a gateway out and something else to choose. All these side, like the governments and whatever, they will have to play by our rules, because otherwise they risk anarchy. And I think that's why that's the only thing that we can actually restrain them. And I think it will be one of the most amazing uses of the crypto ethos. The fact that we're actually here to protect our funds and to actually control them. And I think it's that's why I think that's at least one of the reasons I think this industry is so fascinating. What are you?
To John's point, John, you know, U.S. nationalized all. Yeah, in a Great Depression like format, sure, they did that. But imagine the environment in which case that would lead to something like this. That wouldn't be my number one worry.
Yeah, we'd
like
be in a much worse situation.
If there was necessity, like you're talking about the U.S. economy effectively blowing up, and what that would do to global markets.
Not only markets, God forbid, yeah, not only markets.
Like that would be, you know, can they do it? Yes, but the environment in which, like the conditions in which that would be ripe for an opportunity like this to happen would be, I mean, it's like nuclear bombs going off.
And the thing
every financial market would the real estate, the savings market the bonds, the retirement accounts, and that's just in the US. Like everybody borrowing or pegging their entire economy to the dollar blows up as like it would be like anarchy.
Yeah.
Worldwide
anarchy.
It would be it's like
exactly Cryptovestor, exactly.
The world wouldn't allow that to happen because today's markets are so intertwined with each other that if the US falls, every nation, every economy follows suit. Period.
It's amazing how connected crypto and geopolitics and like everything is just one big mix of our.
I agree. Like in defense of John's points, like is there a non-zero chance? And the answer is yes, because if things have happened before, they will and can happen again. Yeah. However, the likelihood of something like this, in my mind, just given the political environment and conversations around CBDCs, there's just no support for it. And, lobbying groups that are quite funded are now well-funded by crypto people will fight hard to make sure that law doesn't pass. The only like the banks don't even want this. Like, who's going to support this?
Yeah. Who knows? I agree. It's a very extreme scenario, and hopefully we'll have a much smoother sailing with all of this. Guys, before we wrap up, first of all, thank you so much for your time. Like, I enjoyed this so much, and I already want to do the next one, even though we're going for almost 2 hours right now. We'll give a big shout out to everyone tuning in. By the way, we have, according to Restream, 869 people currently.
Nice.
870 now. So guys, feel free to like, comment, ask questions. Thanks for all of those who have asked some questions. But guys, if you have just 2 more minutes, I want to show you what I wanted to share from DeFi Llama. Shout out DeFi Llama. What a great website and service they are. As we were talking and mentioning USDT, in a way, it made me think about we can also divide it this way. Like USDT is competing with the dollar itself and whatever, and the rest of the stable coins up till now, at least, they're mostly competing with USDT in a way, because if we still see USDT at almost 70% dominance, I actually think that it's quite astounding, actually, even compared to USDC, by the way, because I actually think it gives a very good perspective about in a way, I think the US side of things, it dictates a lot of the narratives and the discussion, but it doesn't necessarily dictates all the market, because there's such a huge market, which is, at least the way I see it, I don't think that USDT, I think most of the USDT market is outside of the US, just a guess. And I just want to ask you guys, what do you guys think happens in the near future, the next months, years, this bull market, wherever you want to take it, to USDT dominance, and who are some of the rising stars that we will see if we look at this chart, hopefully a while from now?
What do you?
Sorry, is the question what's going to happen to USDT dominance?
In a way, how do you see this specific order of coins at the moment changing?
I think there's 2 levers that I see happening. I think USDT maintains its dominance, but their market share, there's 2 things happening. One, the size of the pie is going to grow considerably.
What's your number, Ross? What's your number? You got to have a prediction.
Right now, market cap is at 172 billion. What do you see?
I would not be surprised if we break 250 to 300 billion by end of next year. And that's a conservative.
By end of next year?
By the end of next year. I just wouldn't be surprised that is, bull market, stablecoin regulation is coming to market. I'm bullish that it will pass. If stablecoin regulation comes to the US, that's going to create a renaissance or a Cambrian explosion of people that have been sitting on the sidelines wanting to launch their stablecoin, like institutional teams, plus institutional capital is going to flow. Like it's going to be like, pent up pressure that is coming to the market, and they're going to be seeking yield opportunities. Like right now, here's the point. Maple Finance just released their 5-year goal, their 5-year plan. If you go to Maple Finance, great freaking team. They, on their app, their DApp today, right? Their goal is to get to 100 billion in TVL. And I think they are the team to do it, like 100%. There's no amount.
Yeah.
If you look at Base, today, like you're looking at DeFi Llama right now, right? What is the TVL of Base? Look that up real quick.
TVL of Base?
Yeah, just go to Base. Just like click on Base for chains. The Base, Jesse, the founder of Base, is okay. So there's Base, right? Little over 3 billion, almost 4 billion in stable coins.
Yeah.
Base's goal, it is their North Star, which means their developer relations team, their business development team, Circle, Coinbase Institutional, Coinbase, and all the support, and all their network effects behind that. Jesse is like, he's a giga brain. I've met him a handful of times. The guy's like the nicest guy you can meet. His product strategy, his North Star, which is a rallying cry across the Coinbase organization and the umbrella, which is fully backed by Brian, is to get $1 trillion of TVL on Base.
Wow.
Right? Now, okay, put that in one bucket. What do you think that means in terms of stablecoin market cap on Base? Is it going to be 100 billion with $1 trillion? Like right now, the stablecoin market cap on Base is roughly, 50-60% of all TVL. If you abstract that, let's just say it maintains the same ratio, Base hits $1 trillion in TVL. What is the ratio of that to stablecoins? Let's just say it's 50%, given the growth rate today and given the metrics of the inflows today. Let's just say it's 50%. That's $500 billion on Base. So between Base and Maple Finance, there's your $600 billion. So, if we, that's like, I would venture to even have a prediction that we hit those types of numbers in those 5 years between now and 2030. So if you maintain that, like, where do I see it? Like, what is the first stepping stone to make sure like that point, from here on out maintains like those milestones for progress and adoption? Yeah. I work backwards and I say if we think we are on track to those numbers, the KPI, the key performance indicator, by the end of 2025 should roughly be a minimum of $300 billion for stablecoins in the market. Full stop.
I actually think you're even being gentle,
that's why I'm saying, I'm like, it, I would, it's not like I wouldn't be happy at 299 billion, but I think conservatively 300 billion by the end of 2025. I just don't see how, given adoption, given the business development efforts of Tether, Circle, Athena, Curve US, Curve USD and all these fantastic teams. I don't see how, and with stablecoin regulation, like it will pass next year. I don't see how we don't hit $300 billion mark.
Yeah, with the ETFs, with whatever, like actual money is being onboarded already across several channels.
I have a slightly different take.
Where do you see it, Cryptovestor?
I kind of agree with everything that Boz said. I agree that the pie is getting bigger. I believe that Tether will still maintain its dominance. It's kind of like the Bitcoin of stablecoins, and I don't believe it's going away. But I have a slightly different take. Like, I think that what we're missing is what's going to happen to the decentralized stablecoins. So I think that, imagine if Tether increases by 10x to 1.7 trillion. I don't know, maybe it takes a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever. But let's say it increases by 10x to 1.7 trillion. but let's say it loses 10% dominance, from whatever it is now, 60%, 70% to like 60%. That 10% dominance is going to represent $170 billion going into what we have currently right now in total supply, going into other stable coins that are not, the tethers and USDCs of the world. So I see a world where we 10x, but then dominance comes down just a little bit on Tether, and it all flows into all these other yield-bearing assets as yields, real yields, TradFi yields go down, interest rates. There's going to be a flight to going into the crypto system to earn those high-yielding strategies with these stablecoins, and then they will be swapped for the centralized stablecoins for use with your banks and whatnot.
I really
It
like
could
that.
happen.
Yeah. I actually think that, again, not financial advice and whatever, but I don't see how it's not going to happen. Like, I don't see something that can stop stable coins. I'm not hearing about a different and alternative financial system, financial infrastructure, or stuff of that nature. Like, I'm not finding any reasons for this not to happen. Like, I'm not finding any reason for me to say, oh no, you know what? I don't want to use stable coins anymore. Can you please send me these dollars to my bank account? Right. Like, I can't imagine saying it. You know what I mean? Like, people keep asking me, like my Norwegian friend, like, how do you offboard and how do you? And I'm like, man, I'm not even thinking about offboarding. Not only because of investing, which I'm mostly focused in, even though I'm still a tiny investor. But thank God for whatever, But like, I'm gonna use it directly. Like, even if I don't have like the specific card issued here right now because of that regulation or this, but eventually, just like people all around the world are already doing it with several stuff, like, I'm going to be able to use my crypto money directly, and the whole off-ramp side of things, I see it just dissolving. Like, I don't know how fast it's going to be, but even if it takes decades, like for most of us who are already onboarded, I don't think it's actually something that's going to matter. And I definitely agree with the key point that I think both of you are raising about that question that I asked. The biggest deal is that the pie is growing. Like, we're all about expansion, and actually getting a bigger share of the all of the dollars in circulation out there. How many of them are represented or are functioning as actually stable coins rather than paper dollars or digital dollars, old digital dollars or whatever. And I think that it's going to be very, very interesting to follow. And guys, really, thank you so much for your time. This was an amazing talk, probably the longest episode we've ever done. 2 hours and 7 minutes, 919 people watching. Thank each and every one of you. Really appreciate it. Feel free to comment whatever you want us to do. Join us at Leviathan and come earn some squid. Just had the squid drop today for participants who submit headlines, suggest stuff, do stuff for us, and whatever. So shout out to all squid holders and active participants, active Leviathan News participants. Guys, thank you so much for your time. Anything you want to add? You want to say?
Watch out for that white paper. It's coming out, I think, in another week.
Yes.
For FX 2.0.
Gonna be exciting. Exciting for sure. By the way, Cryptovestor, hope to have you guys from FX on Leviathan.
We need to schedule a call. We need to schedule one soon. Yep, absolutely.
Whenever you guys are ready. Boz, sir, thank you so much for coming, man. It all started because of your post and the way you replied to the post.
Oh, yeah.
Appreciate it. Really enjoyed this one. Yeah. And thank you for we went almost Joe Rogan levels here.
Thank you for having me, guys. Thank you for having me, DeFi Advisor.
Thank you for coming.
Take care.
Cryptovestor, always a pleasure. Bye, guys.